To start, press any key. Where's the any key?
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
We go fly.
Guidance.
Guidance, go.
Okay, man, let's turn and burn.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
Dive, dive, dive. Let's put the hammer down.
Intruder alert! Intruder alert!
Get off my bridge!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Roger that.
Are you ready for a war? Count up the usual suspects. Follow me.
Certainly, what have I got to lose?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Smoke and mirrors, guys. Welcome to the movie factory.
I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
Yeah.
Right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
I thought I told you never to interrupt me while I'm working.
Proceed.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Isn't it about time for somebody's favorite radio program?
There is nothing wrong with your radio. Do not attempt to adjust it or change the station. We are in control. We will control the frequency and amplitude modulation. We will control the super heterodyne matrix. We are in control, baby, so keep your hand off the nose.
Take it away, boss.
Greetings, O ye lumpen proletariat. Greetings, ye members of the great unwashed. Greetings, sea of bewildered faces. There you are, out there, in the dark, wondering, as we all do from time to time, what it all means, or if it all means anything. Convinced, by the way, that if only they would stop screwing things up, everything would be so much better. Ah, yes. The dark, mysterious forces of they. They, of course, are everywhere. They listen to our phone calls. They are tabulating all of our internet activity. They are lurking behind every email. They're lurking behind every Facebook post. Could it be that everything is in fact their fault? And who am they, anyway? Well, there seem to be many candidates for the dubious distinction of they. Why, it's them crummy Republicans, yeah. It's them guys them guys are only for the rich people, yeah. Well, there's that crowd. Then, of course, there's the other crowd. Oh, it's them awful Democrats and that Obama. Why, he's just a bonehead, and of course, they are all intent on destroying the country as we know it. Yeah, of course, that could be. Yeah, it's the 1%. It's us 99%. We're the good guys because we're poor and don't make nothing. And, yeah. Well, that's possible, too. It's those hordes of unemployed people that are taking government handouts. That's they. Who the heck am they, anyway? Well, I would propose, gang, that it's entirely possible that they am us, and you am they, and we are we, and we are all together, cuckoo-ca-choo, or something like that. Hey, gang! It's your old philosophical buddy Ray Crew with you on a Saturday night, here once again to plumb the dark depths of your soul and the meaning of life as we know it. And yes, I know I am waxing particularly poetic tonight. I don't know what it is. It's probably the time of the year. It's very difficult to have bright, rational thoughts about anything at this time of the year. It's just, when you have in fact spent your third or fourth consecutive day scraping ice off your windshield with a credit card and realizing that because, in fact, every town between here and the northern edge of this godforsaken state no longer has the money for salt or anything else to melt the ice on the roads, that basically it's every man for himself, and every woman too. We're just out there, baby. We're out there in that little thing I like to call Death Race 2014. Going up and down the parkway from exit 0 to exit whatever, 178 miles worth of absolute insanity. Where it is truly a Darwinian scene, man. It truly is the survival of the fittest. Many are called, few are chosen. And it is not at all uncommon to see sheep culled from the herd. They're generally in Pontiacs with their wheels up down in a ditch somewhere. Their day has gotten off to a very bad start and is soon going to involve paramedics and tow trucks and eventually lawyers, because of course lawyers get involved in everything eventually, don't they, gang? Wait! I've got it! I know who they is! It's the damn lawyers!
Let's kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
Of course, the corollary to the never-ending demonization of they, whoever they may be, the underlying philosophical premise, actually, is that if only everybody was just like me, the world would be a wonderful, groovy, successful, nice place. Well, it's true. I mean, listen to any talking head on either side of the political aisle. Spend just a few minutes trying to digest all of the deeply rationally thought out, nuanced political arguments that you will find bouncing about on Facebook on any particular given day. And you will soon realize that the underlying premise of the individual expressing an opinion or posting some inflammatory picture or yelling over his or her opponent on the air is that if you would all just be like me, damn it, think of how much better a world we live in. Admit it, you secretly believe that yourself, don't you? Yeah. Oh, I know you pay lip service to the fact that, oh, yes, we are a rainbow. Yes, we are a rainbow of diverse colors and different perspectives. Oh, bull. You know that behind closed doors, when the chips are down, you look in the mirror and say, there. There's perfection. Oh, yes, maybe you aren't quite happy with your face on some days, maybe on all days. Maybe you wish you could lose a few pounds and, you certainly, if you could do it all over again, wouldn't want to be born with that nose. But it's not that, of course. It's the inner you. It's that inner beauty that everybody should just see and appreciate. And speaking of inner beauty, it's time for Theater of the Mind News, your one-way ticket to complete enlightenment, total coverage, absolute truth, right here coming at you. Our first story tonight, the French Social Security Agency, URSSAF, and no, I don't know what that stands for, initiated an enforcement action last month against a music bar in France for underpaying employee contributions to their Social Security network. The reason they took the action is because the tavern encourages customers to bus their own tables, thus reducing its need to hire more servers. The owner denied that he was trying to save money. It is just our trademark. We want the customer to feel comfortable, a bit like he's at home. And, that's exactly how he sounds. And while you're at it, why don't you please clean the toilet and rake the yard, and the laundry needs to be folded. The makers of a product called Poo-Pourri garnered a covet... What? No, I said Poo-Pourri. The makers of Poo-Pourri garnered a coveted advertising award from USA Today last month as one of the 5 worst ads of the year. Toilet users concerned about, smell are encouraged to spray Poo-Pourri on the commode pre-use. In a television ad for this product, a British accented female sits on the throne and says, "You would not believe what..." No, I can't do it. I can't even do it with the accent. "You would not believe what I just dropped." Anyway, the amazing thing is that USA Today found 2 other ads even worse. Nelson Thabo Modupe threatened a lawsuit in January. Isn't that fun to say? Let's all say it together, shall we? 1, 2, 3. Nelson Thabo Modupe. That's lovely. He threatened a lawsuit in January against South Africa's Eskom Electric Utility unless the company paid him the equivalent of about $22.3 million for saving the firm. Well, the reason he did that, you see, is that during the weeks of the 2010 Soccer World Cup, Modupe had joined the Zion Christian Church, and he prayed, successfully in his eyes, to God to spare the utility from blackouts and power reductions during the period, which he estimates could have cost Eskom millions more. So Modupe, who was open to negotiations, said if he doesn't get the $22.3 million, he would accept a partnership in the company as a compromise. Sounds fair. I pray too sometimes. For what? Well, let's see. I pray that Comcast won't lose $1 million a day. They can cut me for 20% and consider that a profit. Or I also pray that Jennifer Aniston won't go out with me. Just saying. The Battersea Dog and Cats Home in Fulham, England, admitted in December that a rescued Staffordshire Bull Terrier, Barney, had a ladies' underwear eating habit. Shall I say it again? He had a ladies' underwear eating habit, and that potential adopters should keep him away from laundry baskets. In his first days at Battersea, officials say he passed knickers 3 times. I had a friend of mine once had that same habit. He's been put away, and he's kept away from laundry baskets, and, there's several restraining orders, actually. The Australia Veterinary Clinic warned in December of several reports of dogs becoming addicted to licking cane toads, which notoriously protect themselves by a venomous secretion that can be hallucinogenic. One vet told Brisbane's Courier Mail of individual serial lickers who were treated for cane toad poisoning several times a year. Of course, they were having a great little doggy trip. Whoa! Woof, man. Woof. Like, dude, woof. Look at the colors. Why can't dogs hallucinate and have, trips? I mean, anybody can, I suppose. Remember a great comedy bit years ago about what would happen if Richard Nixon dropped acid. I'm having a bum voyage! That's trip, sir. A group of legal prostitutes in the Netherlands began a campaign in December to have their occupation officially termed so dangerous and physically challenging that they should be allowed, as soccer players are, to save in tax-free pension funds. They, after all, carry out, quote, difficult physical work, unquote, according to their lawyer, and their careers are likewise short-lived, much better suited for the young. Furthermore, their attorney pointed out, prostitutes are not able post-career to earn money coaching or buy endorsements, or working on ESPN, although I don't see why not. That's a sideline report I'd actually pay attention to. American healthcare reformers routinely decry the inability of consumer patients to compare prices of services to help drive down costs. 2 doctors writing for the Journal of the American Medical Association in December illustrated the problem by surveying 20 hospitals in the Philadelphia area. 19 fully disclosed the prices for parking in the hospital garage, and potential discounts were shown, but only 3 of 20 would disclose their prices for routine electrocardiograms. Completely understandable. Well, typically, if you can't find a place to park, you will soon need an electrocardiogram. So better you should know how much it costs to park. In ubiquitous public relations announcements around Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, that's UPMC for those in the know, proudly points to its 52,000-person workforce delivering high-quality care. However, when the government sought to collect payroll taxes at UPMC, the company claimed it owed nothing because not a single employee actually works for UPMC. All 52,000 are technically on the books of UPMC's 40-plus subsidiaries. And a UPMC spokesman told the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette last month that he not only didn't know which subsidiary the UPMC CEO worked for, but which one he himself worked for. He also said he didn't know how many of the subsidiaries paid payroll taxes, but a UPMC attorney said its arrangement is, quote, widely practiced throughout the business community, unquote. Way to go, UPMC. That at least is one they you've managed to defeat. This is a very brief story, but one I think you need to know about. In January, Walmart in China recalled its 5-spice donkey meat sold in... What? Is it 5 spice? I don't know what the 5 spices are. I don't... What? Salt, pepper, oregano, paprika, and... what? Kerosene. I have no clue. In January, Walmart in China recalled its 5-spice donkey meat sold in some locations because the popular snack was found to be tainted with fox meat. Ew! The Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals condemned a pet expo in Greenhithe, England last month after reports emerged that a trainer had showcased Melanie, a raccoon who rides a bicycle-like device, apparently to great acclaim. An RSPCA statement denounced the expo for, quote, degrading a wild animal in such a demeaning light. Oh, come on, man. Stop it. Actually, I didn't read that right, did I? No, actually, it said they denounced the expo for degrading a wild animal in such a demeaning light. Come on, get a sense of humor. Well, not even a sense of humor. To me, this is restraint of trade. You know, Melanie's gig is to ride her little bicycle-like device. Let her be. Has nothing to do with it. Well, and if you want to, by the way, apply that standard, then what agency is going to say something to this radio station for allowing me to be degraded in such a demeaning light by doing this show once a week? Tyler Smith, 23, was charged in December with violating the city animal care ordinance in Greenville, South Carolina, after a photograph was posted on Facebook of his father's dog being lowered by rope from the second-story balcony of an apartment. According to the posting, it was time for the dog to make a call of nature, but it was raining and Smith preferred not to go downstairs. That's not lazy. That's innovative. And that, my friends, is all the news there is or ought to be. Do you ever wonder why every week or so I put together this newscast full of these little oddments, these strange bits of news that I cull from various sources, you know, stories of people lowering dogs out of windows on ropes to avoid having to actually walk them, stories of 5-spice donkey meat, Melanie, the bicycle-riding raccoon, Barney, the ladies' underwear-eating dog. Do you think I just do it to be cute and funny? Well, I guess partially I do. I mean, after all, the wacky news story is the fodder for almost every lame and pathetic late-night monologue there is. It's a formula. It's been going on since Johnny Carson, possibly even since Steve Allen and Jack Parr. And that goes something like this. The team of overpaid writers comes up with 6 or so little random odd news stories that they cull from the wire services or the internet or somewhere. And they simply record them more or less verbatim. The host, whoever it might happen to be, Jay, well, it's not Jay anymore. You've got Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. By the way, is that going to be a problem? We have 2 Jimmys now in this whole late night thing. Shouldn't one of them become James? Perhaps since Fallon came second, he should be James Fallon. Anyway, so whether it's Jimmy or the other Jimmy or Letterman or the ponderously liberal Letterman, as I like to call him, or Marblemouth Conan O'Brien or any of the rest of them, Seth Meyers, by the way, is going to be joining that august group soon. They all have the same formulaic monologue. They stand up there, they read their little odd stories, and at the end of each, they have their snarky comment. Right? Their little snarky comment, and then someone holds up the laugh cue card, and on we go to our first guest. Yes, even my personal favorite of this crowd, and I've never made a secret of it, my personal favorite, Craig Ferguson, who comes on after the ponderously liberal Letterman, and I would argue is the only truly entertaining one of the bunch, because he does not have a band. His sidekick is a mechanical robot. He has a stuffed horse standing on the other side of the wall that he talks to. And he basically puts his face right up in the camera with that wonderful Scottish accent of his. Even he does the news story with the snarky comment at the end, although the difference between Ferguson and the aforementioned is Ferguson's actually funny. I don't actually do it to be funny. Well, good, because you're not. Thank you. I actually do it to kind of point out to you the underlying truth that I shared with you early on under the theme music, which is that not everybody is like you. The corollary, of course, to that is not everybody's like us, whatever the us is that you identify with. That's the other side to the if only you were like me, the world would be great concept, which is if only the world was like us, the world would in fact be great. That, after all, is the foundation of every organized religion that ever was. If only the world would see the truth as we see it, then, well, not only would the world be great, but of course religion has the extra added benefit of saying, and we will save your mortal soul from eternal fire and damnation. That's kind of a powerful incentive to be one of us, isn't it? And having been raised Catholic, I can tell you that's a pretty powerful message to be raised with. It's really kind of an odd concept to, I remember I was 10 before I actually knew a Protestant. Yeah, I'm serious. I was 10. And that's when the Bell family moved in next door. Yes, their name was Bell, and I'm telling you this, and I am not making it up, because what would be the point of making this up? Their father worked for the phone company. He did. Victor Bell and his sisters Robin and Linda. And I was about 10 years old. Well, eventually, by the time we became 12, Robin and I had this, that's a different story for a different day. That is a summer I shall not soon forget. But no, when the Bells moved in next door, these were the first Protestants I ever met. And it was amazing, because up until then our neighborhood had been a homogeneous little enclave of Catholics. And now all of a sudden it became a mixed neighborhood. A couple of Protestants moved in. And I honestly remember that my mother was a little bit concerned about whether or not I should be allowed to fraternize with these Protestants, that somehow they were going to immediately proselytize me and have me handling snakes and denouncing the Pope. That, of course, never happened, because as 10-year-old kids, we could have cared less about any of that stuff. We just wanted to be 10-year-old kids. And so it was a great awakening to me to realize that my friend Victor Bell, didn't have horns and worship the devil. He was actually just a kind of a cool kid like me, who, by the way, had no move from second base. So this was one of the first times that my, up until then, ironclad concept of the sanctity of us, and if only the world was just like us, we'd be cool, began to break down. My horizons began to broaden, you see. And by the way, while we're on that topic, just to take a quick little detour here, the fact that, of course, there are all kinds of us's out there that claim that if only you were like them, you and the world would be better. Religion, of course, is one of them. This is the basic message of the political parties, all of them, no matter who they are, whether they are Democrat, Republican, Green, Communist Worker, you name it. They're all built around this idea that we have the answer, gang. We have it, and you, the unwashed, you need to hear this idea so that we can save you from yourself, no doubt. Now, it's curious that in the modern world, religion has lost a lot of its influence. There's no great shock to that, and I'm not going to do a whole sociological treatise on why religion is no longer relevant in the modern era as it once was. But one of the things I think that religion missed a long time ago, I think the beginning of the downfall of religion is when it became mainstream. If you look back historically, the most vital religions, the most vital groups, frankly, of any kind, that really did attract a lot of people to the message that we have the answer and you should be one of us, were groups that within their greater society were outlawed, were repressed. I would argue that Christianity only became the force that it became because the Roman emperors tried to stamp it out. And eventually, the Roman emperors were secretly Catholics. They were secretly Christians back in the day. In the great novel Cat's Cradle, Kurt Vonnegut, wrote about a religion that was completely against the law, suppressed by the state, that everybody practiced, including the dictator of the state. And therein, you see, lies a great truth about this premise that if only you were one of us. If being one of us is somehow fraught with danger, or if being one of us requires you to stand in solidarity against some commonly understood evil, you see, then it just binds us ever more closely together, and it makes it even cooler and more groovy to be one of us. Now, why am I going down this long pathway? Well, believe it or not, there is a destination here. About a week or so ago, as the dismal South Jersey Cape May winter lay darkly upon us, its damp, dark, icy grip unrelenting, I made my way to a local purveyor of spirits. In other words, I went down to the liquor store, along with a lot of other people. The liquor stores here in Lower Township of Cape May County are, well, put it this way, it's a license to print money, baby. You want to get rich around here? Open up a hooch emporium. There's something about the beginning of another dismal weekend here in Cape May that, frankly, sometimes only alcohol is going to cure. So, on a particular Saturday afternoon, I'm not going to tell you which store it was, but I was getting out of my car in the parking lot, walking towards this purveyor of spirits, this seller of temporary good feeling, when all of a sudden, I heard this belching roar of an old truck engine. I look up, and around the corner of the building comes this decrepit old Dodge truck, one fender dented, the other fender partially gone, painted in that sort of horrible camouflage that I guess some hunters actually think is going to fool a deer or some other animal in the wild. It comes lurching around the corner, screeches to a halt. The one door flies open, and out tumbles, and I do literally mean tumbles, this guy. There were two people, so the guy in the passenger seat literally tumbles out. He's got what looks like some kind of a nondescript green jacket on, this horrible sort of white-gray beard, a cap jammed on the back of his head, and he sort of stumbles out of the cab of the truck and begins to lurch toward the liquor store. And his partner, the driver, is sitting there behind the wheel. You can even see through the glass he's sort of bleary-eyed, sort of unsteady. Clearly he and Cletus there have already been imbibing, but they looked at their supply come Saturday morning and realized it was not going to get them through another long weekend in the Pine Barrens. So they had to go shopping. And so I see Cletus go rolling into the store there, and I'm keeping a respectful distance, as I stand there as I stand over in the gourmet wine section, pretending that I'm not really there to buy any alcohol to drink, to actually become somewhat buzzed or inebriated. Oh, no. I am actually simply comparing vintages. Yes, that is. So I would pick up the bottle and turn the label studiously, noting the location where the grapes were picked, you see. And, meanwhile, Cletus doesn't need any of this affectation. He immediately makes his way to the vodka aisle, looks for the cheapest possible brand available that comes in gallon jugs, takes 2 big gallons unsteadily off of the shelf there, and goes reeling toward the checkout. This vodka, by the way, was so cheap you could literally hear it knocking inside the bottle. It actually was banging up against the sides of the glass. And he goes into one of his top pockets there, and he fumbles with a couple of bills, slams them down on the counter, picks up his 2 gallons of hooch, and out the door he goes. Tries to climb into the truck once, falls out. And I can hear his companion, whom for the sake of the story I'll name Frank, say, "Damn it, Cletus! If you broke one of them bottles, I'm going to kill you." Well, fortunately, luck is with drunks like Cletus, and the bottle was unbroken. And they took off, Cletus and Frank did, and they headed off back to the Pine Barrens to enjoy another $1 million weekend in their deep and meaningful lives. So, well, at some point I stopped pretending that I'm perusing the vintages, and I just, pick up a few bottles of red and a few bottles of white, and oh heck, while I'm at it, how about if we get a 6-pack or 2 of Sam Adams just to have something to chase it all down with? And I make my way to the counter, and I looked at the kid who's taking my money, and I said, "Well, those boys are in for a party." He says, "Oh, yep, they come in every Saturday right around this time. Yep, they're dependable. They're just a couple good old boys. They live out there in the Pine Barrens, and I don't know what they do, but they sure as hell can drink." And it occurred to me that here in New Jersey, here in this supposedly civilized, highly populated state, here, maybe because we are down here at the bottom, down here in the great sump of the state, at the bottom of the peninsula, not that many miles away, people are living lives and doing things that we here in the supposedly civilized part of the county can only begin to imagine. Yeah, the next time you drive up Route 47 or even up the Parkway, look over into those Pine Barrens, just behind those stands of trees, and realize that there are Franks and Cletuses out there, drinking God knows what, and doing God knows what after they're done.
Central Park, or the lion hunter in the jungle dark, or the Chinese dentist, or the British Queen. They are fit together in the same machine. Same device. Oh, a whirling dervish and a dancing bear, or a ginger Rajas and a Fred Astaire, or the teenage rocker, or the girls in yes, we all are partners in this cosmic dance. Nice, nice, very nice, 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 very nice. So many people in the same
as Frank and Cletus drove away on that particular Saturday, I had this odd feeling in the pit of my stomach, this odd déjà vu-like feeling, this odd feeling that I had met one or both of them before somewhere down the line in my life. Yeah, I know, I've lived in the South, in the Deep South. I've lived in places like Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee. I've spent time in all those places where a Frank and a Cletus might be likely to be found. But no, it wasn't there. And then suddenly I remembered, as I drove home with my bottles clanking in the back seat, it occurred to me I knew where I had first met a Cletus. And I also remembered the lesson that meeting taught me. So I'm this 22-year-old kid, see? And I've got my first official job out of college, which you may remember was working as a newspaper reporter, sports editor, photographer, and part-time custodian for the Shippensburg News Chronicle in lovely Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. Now, the very act of moving out to Shippensburg, moving out to central Pennsylvania at the end of my undergraduate college career, that, of course, was a culture shock all by itself. That was one of the first times I had this vague inkling that not everybody is exactly like me, you see. Just as Victor Bell and his sisters Linda and Robin taught me that, Protestants in the world, they seem to be they seem to live their life, and they don't seem to understand that they're damned to eternal hellfire. They just get up every day and do what other people do. Well, so too that I come to find out once I left the cloistered world of my undergraduate college out there in Radnor, Pennsylvania, out there in the beautiful Main Line. And of course, this was before my pen. By the time I went to grad school, by then I was a seasoned man of the world, you see. But at the ripe old age of 21, having just graduated with my newly minted bachelor's degree, there in the late 70s, when the unemployment rate was approximately 98%, at least it was among the graduates for my college. Nobody got a job in their field. Most people were happy to get any kind of a job. We filled the ranks behind the counter there at Geno's for quite a while, my graduating class did. So the very fact that I got a job that was nominally in my field was a pretty amazing thing, even though, yes, I was pulling down a cool $125 a week, which after taxes and expenses and, the phone bills to the squeeze back home basically meant I was running about $50 a week cash negative. But it would take me about 9 months or so to realize that I was gradually going broke as an employed professional. But when I first got out there, you see, one of the great lessons it taught me is that there were people who lived in an entirely different way from what I was used to in the suburbs of a major city like Philadelphia. I mean, for example, I know I've told you this story before on the air. I'll never forget the very first December 1st that I passed out there as the sports editor for the Shippensburg News Chronicle, and I realized that it was deer season on December the 1st. And beginning at the first light of dawn and extending all the way through the rest of the day, truck after truck would pull into the parking lot with guys who looked a lot like Cletus and Frank, with a dead deer draped over their hood, who expected that I, as sports editor, was going to take their picture. Here they were, the two great white hunters emerged from the woods with this dead deer hanging over the hood of the Dodge or the Ford pickup. The deer inevitably looked unhappy. I had never seen so much venison or potential venison in my entire life. And after a while, I got used to the fact that I was taking pictures of dead animals and that this was considered, quote, a sport, unquote. And the next day, I, as sports editor, was expected to run a 2-page spread with all of the particulars, the names of the great hunters, the number of points on the buck. For those of you who don't understand, that's how you judge these things, etc. All right. I also, by the way, during my time there at the Shippensburg News Chronicle, covered. Well, I went to my first slaughterhouse. Well, why do you ask? Why would I go there? Well, you see, this was a time when there was a meat packing group there in town who had crossed a regular sort of beef cow with a buffalo, And they had created this new meat, which they said was going to be a delicacy that was going to take the world by storm, called beefalo. They predicted, optimistically back there in the 70s, that, my gosh, by the time we get into the far distant future, maybe in 1982, beefalo meat is going to completely replace beef as we know it. And beefalo steaks are going to be considered a fine delicacy. And yes, beefalo burger, in fact, is going to be. So anyway, this is what they thought. They were a couple of guys living out some weird fantasy. But my editor one day assigned me to go down there and, quote, cover the beefalo story, unquote. What I did not realize was that covering the beefalo story meant I was going to have to actually spend some face time with said beefalo before it was unceremoniously dispatched to that great grazing ground in the sky. I am not going to describe to you here how that was done. Suffice it to say, it ain't pretty. And I didn't eat any kind of beef for a long time after that. And by the way, if you've never been in a meat packing house or a slaughterhouse in particular, there is a smell, there is an aroma that if you've never experienced it is really kind of hard to describe. It's one you can't quite ever get out of your nostrils. It's not unlike, by the way, the smell that you will encounter if you are ever near a place that's processing a whole lot of citrus. Strangely enough, that smells really bad too, but it's really awful. This awful, horrible smell. And I had to actually interview these guys about the beefalo, as they herded the poor beast into this stall and dispatched it unceremoniously. But at any rate, I'll tell you more of that story some other time. But one of the greatest stories I ever covered, and it's interesting that all of these stories have to do with animals in a weird way, had to do with my first real bit of investigative journalism. Yes, I did. I did some undercover work back then. For $125 a week, not only was I doing undercover investigative journalism, I actually risked my life. On more than one occasion, I risked my life. And this one in particular had to do with a story. We would get tips, like most news operations, even little ones like the Shippensburg News Chronicle, they get tips from various sources. And my editor got a tip on one particular day in the fall of that year about this guy who was allegedly stealing pets and selling them to research laboratories. Yeah, what a heinous creep this guy was. He was stealing little Fluffy and little Spot and selling them to this big evil research place who did God knows what with them. Now, this tip came from a group which I don't know if they're still in existence or not. They were called the American Anti-Vivisection Society. They're probably still around. A bunch of very nice, lovely, well-meaning people. Mostly at that time, ladies of a certain age named Florence and Doris, who, wanted this horrible practice to stop. And not to mention the fact that there were some pretty irate pet owners, who just had their Cocker Spaniel Rags scooped up with a big net and taken off to some nasty, awful fate. Well, it was my job, you see, to go out there and try to determine, along with the police, who was doing this. Why me, you say, along with the police? Because my editor decided this was going to be a great story. And the American Anti-Vivisection Society bought a full-page ad. So it was cash money. Another great lesson I learned. Journalism is not a pure thing. This was not some pure, clean as a driven snow vocation I was a part of. Money talks, what walks, and that's true in all endeavors in life. So I, along with the cops, the local cop, by the way, who was about a year older than me, the only difference is he couldn't write a beautiful pyramid lead, and he also got to carry a gun. Other than that, we were just a couple of, just barely kids, and we're sitting in a squad car, and we're staking out this neighborhood where this creep had apparently been stealing pets. And we were watching, you see, because there were, in fact, dogs and cats and, people would keep rabbits in their backyard. And this guy wasn't choosy. I mean, anything with 4 legs and fur, he would pretty much scoop right up and take. So I'll never forget it. We're out there one night and it's about 2:00 in the morning. And yes, I still had to go in and I still had to show up at work at 7. All the things you do for $1.25 a week. And all of a sudden we see we see this nondescript old pickup truck come rumbling down the street past us, not unlike the one Frank and Cletus were driving, and out gets this guy. And he's got this bag, see? And he's kind of skulking around, and it's obvious that he is casing these backyards. Now, we didn't know if we were going to actually catch him in the act, but this guy was clearly acting suspicious. If anybody looked like a pet napper, it was this guy, see? And we essentially staked this neighborhood out for like 5 consecutive nights, and on 5 consecutive nights he shows up with the bag. Now, never did we actually witness him taking anything. But you see, along the way, I was taking something. I was taking pictures. Yes, it was dark, but even then, you see, we had infrared film. This was pretty high tech, I suppose. But I was shooting all these pictures, see, and I began to write this series. Once I was armed with these pictures. Now you couldn't quite tell who it was, but it looked really cool. You see, you could sort of see this skulking figure in the infrared shot, and you could see the truck. And I began to write this series about the evils of pet napping and the awful, horrible research labs that were doing nasty things to Fluffy and Spot, and this began to run in the paper. Right? This, in fact, was running on the front page, just below the fold, with my name on it. And here I am. I'm like barely over the age of 21, and I'm doing this great bit of crusading journalism. And I'm feeling very good about myself. You see, I'm on the side of the forces of like good and right and nice, and I'm going to expose this awful, rotten, nasty guy. And of course, I'm getting all kinds of letters to the editor, especially from Florence and Doris from the anti-vivisection crowd, saying what wonderful, pithy journalism this is, and on and on. So this goes on. See, by now I'm like in number 3 in a series, and we've actually run these pictures, these infrared pictures of this skulking guy. Now I have to describe to you briefly the layout of the newsroom there at the News Chronicle. It was a little one-story building. The presses were right there in the same building, and so it too had a distinct smell, like a slaughterhouse does, and it had this great smell of ink. And you'd walk into the reception area there, see, and the reception area was separated from the newsroom, where we, the ink-stained wretches, sat behind our Remington typewriters, only by this little half wall, you see. And we had our nice little reception lady there who had been there, since they invented newsprint and ink. And she would greet people as they came in. So one day the door, which normally opened with a very civilized tinkling of the bell over the top, the door slams open. And immediately following the door slamming open, you heard this voice, a voice that even before I understood what it meant, struck fear into my very vitals. "Is that damn reporter of yours, Ray Crew, in? I want to see him." And he proceeds to spit this long brown stream of tobacco juice on the floor. The nice reception lady is ruffled for a second and says, "I'll check." And she rings my phone, see? Well, of course, I did what any self-respecting, brave, crusading journalist would do. I ran and hid in the men's room. So she didn't have to lie when she said I wasn't in. But I could still hear his voice, see? "You tell him to stop writing them articles and taking them pictures, or I'm going to kill him." And with that, he slams out. Now, I don't know if you've ever actually had your life threatened in your line of work. It's one of those moments that changes a man, A couple of those seminal moments, having your life actively threatened. The first time someone pulls a weapon on you is another one of those moments. These are the times that change you. These are the experiences that after you've had them, you never can unhave them. So the good news was I was in the men's room when I heard that threat, so I didn't have to worry about any wardrobe changes. Of course, the question then came to me, what do I do now other than have somebody else start my car? Now I see that my editor has this weird gleam in her eye as I come back into the newsroom, and I, of course, am trying to not only regain my composure, but also regain my bravado. But at the time, I was trying to make the scene with this hot-looking blonde who was the editor of the Society page, so I couldn't let her see that I was in any way ruffled by this. So I go to my editor and I ask the inevitable question, "Now what are we going to do?" And she looks at me with this weird gleam in her eye, and she says, Well, there's only one thing we can do. Call the police? No. You're going to interview him. I'm gonna what? You're going to interview him. But, well, I've got his name and address right here. His name, and I'll never forget this name, gang. His name was Orestes D. Vanderkamp. What a name. Yes, the name of the man who first threatened my life was Orestes, and I do say first. He was the first in a line. Who first threatened my life was named Orestes D. Vanderkamp. And he had graciously left his address. And my editor's saying, yeah, I want you to go interview him. But the guy threatened my life. Don't worry, I'll send the cops with you. The cops meant the kid that was 2 years older than me, that had the gun, and couldn't write a pyramid lead. But he's a criminal. No, he's not a criminal. He's a guy that you photographed acting suspicious, and he may be a really important part of this animal pet stealing anti-vivisection story. And I had to come to grips with the fact that I was going to have to actually interview this guy. And so for the first, and it would not, by the way, be the last time, I set up an interview on the phone that required police protection. And no, the phone conversation was not pleasant. But I do remember one thing that Orestes said at the conclusion of that phone conversation. Y'all might not want to come out here alone. Well, I had no intention of coming out there alone. So I call my cop friend, see? He thinks it's the funniest thing he's ever heard of. Oh, that old boy, I know that old boy. He's not going to kill anybody. I know exactly where he lives. We'll just take a ride out there. I don't even think he's the guy's been stealing them pets. Sure, easy for you to say. He didn't threaten you, and you get to carry a gun. So we drive. We drive out north of town, up Route 11, and we turn off on this nondescript looking dirt path. And we drive to the point where the dirt path stops even being a dirt path anymore. We're just driving on these two ruts that take us back deep into the woods. And I got to tell you, friends, I firmly believed I was never going to see paved highway or anybody that I cared about or loved again. And we come upon this cabin, and it's like a cliche. You can close your eyes right now, you can picture it. It was a tar paper shack. There were windows, one or two windows that hadn't been broken. You could literally see the tree stumps that Orestes used for target practice. There were skins of various types. Yes, skins hanging where they were stretched out on these racks all around the cabin, see? And there's smoke coming out of the top. Had a fire going, apparently. So I get out to go in, and my cop friend is still behind the wheel of the cruiser. I say, aren't you coming with me? No. Don't worry, I got you covered. You've got me covered? He pats the pistol there in his belt, which I vaguely suspected he had only once or twice fired in target practice, and certainly never in the line of duty. So I go and I knock on this guy's door, see? And the door swings open, and there he is, in the flesh, Orestes D. Vanderkamp. Wasn't a tall man. Stood maybe a head shorter than I did. But there was something about him that was all man. If you've ever actually come face to face with a primal creature, gang, someone that is not of our civilized world, someone that, well, I'm sure he has long since passed away, but this is a man who did not have a phone. He did not have electricity. He did not have any of the affectations of modern civilization. If he were alive today, which I highly doubt he is, he would not have a Facebook page, a Twitter account, or a widescreen TV. Orestes was a basic primal man of the land. He fixed me with a gaze that I'm quite sure was the last thing many a living creature saw before it met whatever its maker was. So with trembling hands, I took up my reporter's notebook and I asked him the question I'd come there to ask. Namely, was he the one that had been stealing the pets and selling them to the labs? He looked at me for a long minute and admitted that, yeah, he had. He also reminded me that I had no proof, which I didn't. And then he said, but you did catch me fair and square, so I guess I'm going to have to stop now before I get arrested. And then he said the money wasn't all that great anyway. I said, well, why'd you do it? Well, man needs to eat. Plus, I figured they were curing cancer or something at those labs, so I was eating and I was doing a good turn, too. Yeah, he thought he was doing a good turn. But in any event, my job as a crusading journalist was done. The pet nappings would stop. Arrestees would never be named because we had no proof. The anti-vivisection crowd would laud me as a hero. And I got to meet someone that I would never have met otherwise. As I'm heading for the door, Orestes says to me, you can tell your cop friend to put the gun down now. I don't think he could hit anything with it anyway. By the way, you ever had snake? No. Yeah. Good eating. You come back. I'll make you some snake some night. And I did. And he did. And it was great. So, gang, I want you to remember that tonight, out there somewhere in the Pine Barrens, Cletus and Frank are sitting down to vodka and possibly a nice big plate of hot steaming snake. You see, not everybody's like you or like us. Maybe if they were, the world would be a better place, but I'm guessing not.
I'd say that was a pretty successful broadcast.